Good morning everybody, welcome to today's show. Cool and wet outside today, but anyway, we've had some lovely weather up until now, but anyway, got to change. So, today, last week turned into a bit of a disaster at the end where I lost things and wasn't quite sure of which material to use for drawers, and there's a fair bit of confusion. So this week I've got it all sorted, so we should be able to get things done relatively quickly. Now, one of the other things that I'm going to do today is I'm going to get into some technical stuff, so stay tuned because it's not going to happen until after I've actually performed the act of the technical act. So stay tuned and we'll get through that bit too. So hopefully you'll learn something out of it today. I know it took me a little while to work it out, but I've got it figured, and now we're all up and running. And good evening, John. Welcome. I haven't seen Skip on there today, so I hope you're having a good afternoon. Anyhow, let's get on with it. Now, I've got my table set up already, so I've got a dovetail bit in here, and I've got my straight bit in here. I've got them set to the right height. Everything's all organised, and the reason I did that was because I've already cut the joints for two of the drawers. Now all our drawers are different sizes, so the bottom one's a bit deeper than the next one up and so forth, so it just descending order. So I've got those all done. I've got the bases already cut for them. I'll show you how what I've got there. But today what we're going to do is we're going to cut the top drawer. Now this is for those people who have not used the jumbo jig or have confusion about what jumbo means in our part of our industry. The jumbo jig, and I'm just going to go over this before we get started. The jumbo jig is this jig here. You can see it is quite large. It is long. The body of the jig is exactly the same as our standard jig. This is our standard jig. You can see it's just a bit shorter. The jumbo refers to the size of the jig, not the size of the template. The template is a B template. And now we have a jumbo version of it, we have a standard version of it. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about that. This is so that you're not confused about it. Now, what I have here is I have everything reasonably well set. I've just got to check it before I cut anything. And then I'm going to cut my joints. So, and you'll see me do a couple of little things in the process, but don't be worried about it because I will go over that at the end. We're going to do everything's going to be in reverse, as you might think. Okay, so this is what we've got. So you can see I've already cut quite a bit with the template. Now I'm not concerned about the height of all this because I have it already set because I've already cut all my other joints on it. If you're cutting something that's got different thicknesses, then you need to be aware of the amount of damage that you create on the side of your jig. If you don't, you're going to end up with tear out on the inside of your joints. Don't want to do that. So here I have my 4 pieces, and if you remember last week I said I actually cut up some cedar to do the drawer frames with, but when I put it together it was very, very dark. Even in the shallow box it was very, very dark on the inside, so I had to go and source myself some silver ash, which is what I have here. I wasn't happy with the original plan. The original plan was to use some what was it? I'm just trying to remember the timber. Pammy, can you remember the timber? Killarney ash. And that's what the Killarney ash looks like compared to the silver ash. Oh, you can't actually see the colour. I'll stand it up a bit for you. You can see the Killarney ash is very, very white and clear, but it carries these sap pockets because it is a I think it's Eucalyptus dunnii. Not quite sure, but I think that's what I was told. So, and when we've looked it up, that's what it is. So, silver ash, a little bit more golden, a bit more warm to the timber. So I've decided to use the silver ash, and we managed to be able to source some. So very hard to get hold of, but anyhow, I got some, and I got enough to do the drawers. So what I've done is I've set everything up. So I've sanded the inside of the board. And the outside, I've got my face side mark on there. Now I've put it on in pencil so that you can see it. I normally don't use a pencil, but it's a hardwood, so I should be able to remove it quite easily. So my next step now is to set up on the jig. So set up evenly on the jig. And I'm working on this end because I had something different on that end. And the beauty about having the jumbo jig for this task is that I can work two ends of the jig without having to change my backing boards over. So slide my stops up, and what I'm going to have is I'm going to have two dovetails in this one here with the middle drawer. I have three dovetails. With the bottom drawer, I have four dovetails evenly laid out. Okay, so 2, 3 and 4 in that order. It sort of fits. Anyhow, this one's going to have 2. And I've just set that up nice and evenly. And now I'm going to cut them. Now, cutting on the long parts, my drawer is like so. The short ones are the front and back of the drawer, and the two long ones on the side, and we always cut our dovetails on the long pieces so that the drawers will open and close nicely. So I've got that set up. There is another tool that I have to use. This is the technical bit that I'm going to talk to you about later. Don't get too close, Pammy, don't show them.
I think the secret's out.
The secret's out? No. Just have to reverse that. Okay, so I have my little spacer there. Ears on, everybody. We're ready to cut. Tammy, you want to go and turn the extractor on?
Hold that.
So what I have there is all of my joints are cut. Now we're just going to go and turn the extractor off. Makes a bit of noise, too hard to talk over the top of. You can see that I've got all the joints cut on the side panels. So now it's a matter of cutting the end panels. So with the jig, we're going to move to the other end of my tables. Just shift my dust extractor. Turn the jig around and set up exactly the same. Always have your face-sided marker out, and I have it pointing at my red stop. You'll notice this is the back panel. This is the back panel of the drawer. This is the front one. I've already drilled the holes that are actually going to hold the false front in place. So the countersunk, that's the inside of the box, or the inside of the framework, and of course the outside shows like that. So we're going to have the false front that will go onto the back of that. Okay, so we'll move down to the other end. Need to turn the extractor on again, mate. Okay. Okay, so we're pretty much done with the jig. I'll just grab Remy's camera so we can go and turn the extractor on again. As you can see, dust extractor is there we go. Alright, now just going to assemble this, and then I'm going to get onto this little technical bit that I was talking about earlier in the show. That's the bottom. Edge of this one. And there we have a perfect little drawer. Okay, so it'll be that way. This will be the front of the drawer, that'll be the back of the drawer. Now, if we get time in later in the show, I'm going to cut a rebate in the bottom here for the back panel. I'll show you how that looks because I've already done a couple of them already. But we'll go on to the technical bit that I was going to talk about earlier. Right, so just bear with me. We'll do the best we can with it. I've been asked many times about building another template that spreads the joint out on thinner material. So if you look at, say for argument's sake, the joints on this little box where I have very thin material, you can see the joints are fairly close. Now if you had thicker material and spread them out and put those joints on there, you'd probably end up with a whole heap of joints all crowding on top of each other. So some people like to have wider joints. Here's how we go about it. If you look at this box, the joints on this box are fairly wide, so there's not that many of them on the box. This is the box that we make for our tools, and as you can see here, the material is quite thin. It's only 12 millimeters. Now, cutting wider joints on thin material with our system is quite difficult because each of our templates is set for a range of thicknesses. Now our B templates, the range of thickness for the timber on that to get an accurate cut and not do any damage to your template, you need to have at least 14 millimeters as a minimum, and you can see this one's 12, 14 millimeters for the minimum, the maximum is 22. Now, generally you don't go over 22. That's a fairly big piece of material. Unless you've got some special project, I wouldn't go there. But I do like occasionally to do a deep box with my joints spread out. And this is how we go about it. The danger that you have with this is if I have thin material, and I'll find a piece, I had a piece, I've lost it.
Is it right there?
No, I don't think that's it. I've lost it. Piece of scrap maybe. No, there's none in there either. Okay, let's say for argument's sake I want to cut joints in a piece of material this thick. To set my height, I'll have this here, right? So setting my height for proper cut without wasting a lot of material. The problem you have is that the bearing is below the top of the table. And when you try to cut, what happens is the teeth of the router bit cut into the template, which destroys the template, and then the jig is of no use to you anymore. So what we need to do is we need to raise our thickness, raise this up so that we've got purchase on here. Now, if we bring that up till we have got purchase on there, you'll find I'm trying to cut stuff that's that thick, it just doesn't work, right? So what I do, and I'm going to use a piece of 14mm, find my little calipers. You need to keep in mind that the thickness of range is 14 to 22mm, so you need to be within that range. So I've got a piece of material here that is, it's just under 14mm, so it's actually underneath the range. So if I set my height to this piece of material, like so, look how much purchase I have on the jig. Not very much at all. That's quite unsafe, right? So what I need to do is I need to raise that up, and I still need to cut, and you'll see it, I've done it on here, with the joints being the thickness of the material, plus a 0.5mm. So here's how you go about it. Set your piece of material up in the jig where you wanted to cut the joints. Let's say we cut it there. So we've set it up as per normal. I should put some markings on that so that we know where we're up to. Okay, so there's my face side mark. And my other piece, so I've got another piece here. Now, if I add, and you'll see that I've got a little spacer here, 5mm spacer. If you add together the thickness of your material plus your spacer, in this case it adds up to, it's just under 14mm, so 14 and 5 is 19mm, which is in the middle of our range, between 14 and 22mm. So if I put that under there, and you saw me do it there before, and then clamp the piece of timber in place, take the spacer out, you can see now I have a little gap underneath. So what I'm doing essentially is just using the top part of my cutter to cut my joints. When you adjust your height, you do exactly the same thing. Put the spacer on your height adjusting pad, set your piece of timber on it, and adjust your height to the correct height. I hope that makes a bit of sense, but when we cut the joint, we now have adequate support from the bearing on the template, and it's quite safe that way. You need to make sure that your piece of timber is really locked into place as well. So making sure if you've got a material over 100mm wide, you should have two clamps on it. Like so, and this is what happens when you cut the joint. So ears on, everybody. we end up with a perfect set of joints. Now, to cut the other side, this technique is exactly the same. We set our piece of timber into the jig. I'll get all the bits and pieces here. Set our spacer underneath. Lock the piece of timber into place. Remove the spacer. I'm just going to move up to the other end where I've got the other one set up. Now I want to check to see that I've got this the right height. So using my opposing piece of material, and as you can see, that's the right height. If it wasn't, I would adjust it and cut my joints. So here's on everybody. Now you can see I have perfect joints, but somewhere along the line I have missed my adjustment.
Yeah, I don't think the timber was hard down on the spacer.
Oh, okay. So no, it wasn't. So I have to probably raise that a little bit more. But that's the technique. We still get a perfect set of joints. Like, it's still pretty good when you look at it. Everything fits exactly right. I need to readjust that properly. But the idea is exactly the same, or the principle behind it is getting enough support from the bearing on the template of the jig. Now, that technique works both with both B templates. This one is the B10 standard, this one is the jumbo jig. Okay, so that technique will work with both of those larger versions, and you can spread your joints out, make them a little bit further apart. Okay, so we're all done. What I need to do now is put, I hope that makes some sense, folks. It's one of the questions that I get asked all the time, and it's thought I'd just give you a rundown on it, and then we'll take it from there. So now what I want to do is I want to show you what we do with the drawer once we've got it, the joints made. I'll just show you what I have here. I'll put together this drawer. Now I went along and I bought some really nice, I think it's called red ash plywood. Now I don't normally use ply, but I've got such a large area to work with that it's probably the best option. I've cut it to size, I've rounded over the edges, made it all pretty, and now it's just a matter of fitting the drawer together. You can see in here I have a 7mm trench already cut. Now, normally I would use a rebate cutter, assemble the box and run around it. It's a bit difficult this time because the box is so big for a start, and secondly I don't have a 7mm rebate cutter or slot cutter. It's just too difficult a task. So I'm going to use the router. Normally you'll find that most people would use a dado blade on a table saw if they have a table saw. I don't have a table saw, so I've got to work out a way of actually cutting a trench that's first of all accurate, to the size, and to requirements of what I need. So I've got the trenches cut in all of those. So let me put it together. Now the other thing I've done is I've removed the bottom half of the trench on the back of it. Just got to make sure I get it's in the right place. And this is where marking things is important. Now I could have cut the rebate all the way around the inside and then just left it like that and fitted the whole thing together, but you can't remove the base if it gets damaged, dirty, or if for any reason you can't remove the base and replace it if you have to. But if you do it this way, you can. So all my joints fit nicely together. And in here, I have the back bit missing, but I've still got the trench around here. I can slide that straight into there. Get it the right way around. And of course that will get pushed down, and 3 screws, 1, 2, 3, will go into there to hold that together once it's all glued together. And that will be the drawer. We then need to put a fascia on here, so we'll put a front piece on the front of it. But as you can see, it's quite a nice fit. I've got to push it in a little bit further, still not quite into the trench in the front here, but it will come in all the way, and there's your drawer. So standard technique on how to build a drawer. I'm using 7mm ply. You don't need to use 7mm ply. You could use something that's a bit thicker if you like, but I want to make it quite sturdy setup. So that will be what the drawer looks like. So just put that aside. And building drawers is a relatively easy task. It's just a matter of going through the processes one at a time and just making sure that you get them all good. Okay. You can see that the joint is a little snug. But we can pull it apart quite easily. Another one out. Okay, so these two won't go together, so I want to just make sure I put those together when I finish. Now the router bit that I'm using this time, I'm using a 1/4 inch spiral cutter. The router bit, I'm going to take 2 cuts with everything. It's Tiers are W8 1/4" from Carby Tool. So as you can see, it's not that big. Put the spanner. Just want to make sure that's good and tight. Now my depth of cut. During the process of actually building the drawers, I wrote out basically the instructions and measurements for each of the drawers, and just a few instructions on how I went about it. So that's a good reminder for me, because I've got 3 drawers and lots of things interfere, so I need to think about it every now and then. So bottom edge, the bottom edge is shown by my face side mark, so I'm going to cut a rebate along here. Now my first cut, and the first pass that I'm going to do is only going to be 3 or 4 mil. I'm only going to come in 5 or 6 mil. It doesn't have to be an exact measurement. The distance from the router bit to the fence has got to be 5 mil, because I only want it 5 millimeters up from the bottom. So this is where my Lark tool comes in handy. This is the black one. This is the version 1 of the one with the knob. Okay, so that's set at 5 mil. Clean it. Lock that down. Now my height, because I'm cutting hardwood and I'm cutting a long cut, I need to make sure that it comes up clean. So I'm going to set the height, it's say 3 millimeters for my first cut. So again, set my Lark tool. That will give me an easier cut, and it's just a matter of now pushing along and taking my rebate out of there. So just because I haven't got a table saw doesn't mean to say I can't have accurate rebates, accurate cuts and clean finishes to my work. It just takes a little bit of thinking about how you go about setting up. So I'm going to do all of my pieces, so set them all around the right way so that we've got them all ready to go. Incidentally, I've still got 1 or 2 push blocks available, so if you wish to purchase one, jump online and have a look. Oh, actually they're not online yet, are they? You'll have to give us an email, send us an email. Okay, here's one. Now I just need to set my height to the correct depth. So I've just taken out a little bit. So I'm going to set that one, and so I'll use this one, it's easier to see. Set that at 5mm. I generally bring it up too high and then I just lower it down a little bit. 5mm. I'll just recut. So here's on, everybody. Now, my trench is not wide enough to put the base in. Basic because I only have a small spiral bit, so it's just not quite there. So what I need to do is I need to expand that trench now. So set my lark tool again. And I need to come out another 1.5 millimeters. And now I set my fence to that. I think another 1.5 millimeters is going to be too much. I think I need to go 1 millimeter instead, so let me check that again. Thick. So now I just set my fence to that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the inside edge this side, on the top side. I need to keep that material there for support for the base. It's just a matter of now running through each of those. And there I have a perfect fit. And now it's just a matter of cutting the rest of them. So here's on. Drop that out of the way. Get the fence off. And I should be able to fit that drawer together. A bit furry in there. I'll just get the sandpaper and take that furry bit out. So even with the router bit, we can get a very clean cut. Even when we're cutting along the grain, you can see that the trenches are very clean. A bit of furry stuff on each edge there, but that's acceptable. Okay, that one's got my mark. This one's got my mark. Actually, before I cut this, I have to remove that bit off the back of here. So over to the drop saw. Make sure this doesn't move anywhere. Lovely and clean along the surface there. So now we start to fit things together. That one goes like that. This one will go in the right way, like so. And now you can see we've got the gap on the bottom. You can see right on the end there, you can see I've got the space now to be able to fit the panel in. And there we have perfect fit. Drawer. Spot on. So it's just a matter of now. All I need to do now is glue those together. So the drawers will look really nice when we've got them in there. I'll put some screws in the bottom of that. I'll get the whole lot glued together. If I glue them together and tidy them up, next week I'll show you how to hang them, how we're going to put them into the cabinet. Now the cabinet's sitting over there, and we've got everything pretty much ready to fit. Oh, the thing that I have to do is I have to make the front panels. So I've got to cut up some material. We're going to do that in cedar, which is the same material that we've got the box frame made out of, and we're going to do that as well. So we'll get that all sorted. We'll get them all tidied up a little bit, and you'll see how nice the drawers are. But as you can see, it's quite a big drawer. If we had this made out of darker timber, it would look a lot darker inside the cabinet, particularly when it's fitting into inside the drawer, when it's fitting into the cabinet. So the idea is to use lighter timber. Sometimes you'll find that cabinet makers will use a cheaper timber to use the drawer frames because basically they're not seen. We've used some relatively expensive stuff because it's furniture for our own home, and I've made it so that it's going to be a sturdy unit that'll last us forever. So that's it for today. We're going to call it quits there. So we're 5 minutes early today, so it gives you time to get across to Dave and say good day to him. But we're just going to call it quits there because all I have to do now is put the framework, glue all the framework together, and you don't want to be watching that because it's like watching paint dry. And then tidy them up and fit them. So we're getting pretty close to having the cabinet already made. So that'll be the end of it today. So don't forget, everybody, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and we'll catch up to you next Sunday, and I'll have the cabinet pretty much all sorted. So have a good week, everybody, and I will see you next week.